north who are going to come to Yerushalayim and besiege Yerushalayim. And in Yecheskel Perek Yud Aleph, we find that there are others who have misinterpreted this. And that's why Hashem has to ask Yirmiyahu as well, Ma ata ro'eh? What do you see? Do you interpret the pat as those in the time of Yecheskel do? Because Yecheskel sees his own peers, other Nevi'im, who have already been approved and accepted amongst the people as Nevi'ei Emet, as true prophets. He sees the Kohanim, the members of the Sanhedrin on the eastern side of Har HaBayit, Yazaniah ben Azor and Platayahu ben Benayahu. He sees that they're delivering Nevuah, and Hashem says, but they're delivering the wrong types of Nevuot. They're distorting Nevuot. They are not perceiving messages properly. They're saying, Lo bikarov benot batim, that the people in Babel should not unpack their suitcases, because he hasir v'anachnu habasar, because Yerushalayim is a pat. Yerushalayim is a fortified city that will protect its contents against the fire. Va'anachnu habasar, we are those contents. We will be protected. Nothing wrong will happen here in Yerushalayim. Look at our gates. Look at our security. Look at our tanks. We're doing great. We are the seer. And Hashem says, Yirmiyahu, ma'ata ro'eh. What do you see when I show you the path? Do you see a fortified, strong city of Yerushalayim? Or do you see a city that is about to become a besieged city by its enemies due to its horrific actions and iniquities of Avodah Zarah? And Hashem tells Yecheskel, go and speak against these people and tell them it's true, Yerushalayim is a path, but not a pot the way you think of it. It's not a pot that will protect you. Rather, it's a pot with meat. Pasuk Zayin, Lachen kol Hashem Elokim chalalechem asher samtam b'tocha. You're going to put meat into the pot, and generally you put meat in order to protect it against the fire because you also place water. But eventually, when it's besieged, the water sources will be depleted, and then what happens to the contents of the pot? What happens to the meat? Hashem says, He hasir I'm going to bring sword upon you, and you will be the meat in the pot, but you're going to be, pardon the expression, the dead meat in the pot. It's not going to be a pot, a city of fortification, but rather, it's a pot of siege. How do you understand the situation? How do you see what's going on around you? And notice that Hashem has to ask Yirmiyahu this. Both in the first year of his Nevuah, later he's going to ask it in the 22nd year of his Nevuah, Ma'ata ro'eh, because during times that are unclear, during seasons of Shvat, when we don't know, something can go one way or the next. And as we know, this leads to Adar, the people in Shushan not knowing, again, are they going to be victims of a genocide? Or is there any possibility of hope of survival? This is the time period, Ben Shvat la'Adar, to reinterpret the messages, to take a look, to take stock at what's going on around us, to look at the season, but also to look at ourselves, personally, nationally, to try to understand what is truly going on and how can we affect the future based on the present. And what's interesting is that throughout Yirmiyahu, it seems as if Hashem will probe Yirmiyahu continuously. Hashem forces Yirmiyahu to take a look around and to try to understand, to undergo introspection. But finally, in Yirmiyahu Perek Lamed Bet, Yirmiyahu starts asking questions of God. And we find something fantastic happening within this perek. Hashem tells Yirmiyahu, and this is 2 prakim before the Haftorah that we just read this past Shabbat, Hashem comes to Yirmiyahu in the 10th year of Tzidkiyahu, Melech Yehuda, Hi Hashana Shmona Esrei leNebuchadnezzar. We already know, the 10th year, the Beit HaMikdash is destroyed in the 11th year. That already means that the city is besieged. But just in case you lost track of counting in Yirmiyahu, which is possible because the entire Sefer is extremely achronological, the Navi tells you, in case you forgot, Az chel melech Bavel tsarim al Yerushalayim. The forces of Babel have already besieged Yerushalayim. The Yirmiyahu Hanavi hayakalu b'chatzar hamataran. Yirmiyahu is living with the livestock on the northeastern side of Har HaBayit Asher Beit Melech Yehuda, because there he was locked up because Tzidkiyahu doesn't want to hear any more nevuot of Yirmiyahu. At the same time, though, he sees that everything Yirmiyahu has said has come true, so he can't kill him off either. And Hashem tells him, that's it, you're going to be destroyed. In the middle of all this, Pasuk Vav, Vayomer Yirmiyahu hayad dvar Hashem elai lemor. Yirmiyahu recounts what happens during this 10th year. Hinei Chanamel ben Shalom dodecha ba elacha lemor. Chanamel, the son of Shalom, your father, or in other words, Chanamel, your cousin, is going to come to you, and he's going to ask you, Kne lecha et tzadi asher ba'anotot, ki lecha mishpat ha'geula. Yirmiyahu, I have a little bit of a problem. I have a field in Anotot, probably right next to Yirmiyahu's, but I can't afford it anymore because I have nothing to live off of, because it's a state of siege going on now in Yerushalayim. So he's going to ask Yirmiyahu to fulfill a known halacha that's presented in Parshat Bahar, known as Ge'ulat Sadeh. You, Yirmiyahu, have to purchase this field because I can't afford to upkeep the field, and I'll live off of that money. And during a Yovel year, what will happen to that field? It will return to me, but in the meantime, at least it will stay within the family. Now, generally, who has the requirement to purchase this field from the relative? The closest relative. Who's the cousin's closest relative? Not his father, not his brother, not his uncle, not his son, not his grandson, but rather his cousin. This in itself is a very sad tale. And he comes to Yirmiyahu and he says, you're the living closest relative. You have to purchase the field. I can't survive otherwise. And Yirmiyahu figures out that, in fact, that's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to purchase this field. Pasuk says, please remember Yirmiyahu's predicament right now. He's living incarcerated with the livestock. And what is he supposed to do? Purchase a field that not only he has no usage for right now, nor access to right now, but also he knows, and what messages has he been delivering to Am Yisrael? It doesn't pay to invest in real estate in Yerushalayim right now because the city is about to be destroyed and desolate. Nonetheless, he is going to undergo a business transaction in front of the requisite witnesses. He's going to write the original treaty together with a signed contract. ויקח את ספר המקנה, את החתום, המצווה והחוקים את הגלוי, ותן את הספר המקנה אל ברוך בן נריה, and he's going to give it to his scribe to watch over, ותצווה ברוך לעיניהם, and now he is going to make a public pronouncement. Do you see this contract of purchase of sale that I have? I want you to know, this is the Sefer HaGaloi, כי כה אמר השם צבאות אלוקי ישראל. What is the reason behind this? The same Navi who's been predicting horrific nivuot of destruction and desolation comes along and says, but Hashem is coming to tell you, right before the siege and the Churban Beit HaMikdash, that one day you will come back to Eretz Yisrael, and you're going to need contracts like these. And it's actually going to be good because you'll be able to purchase land throughout the areas of Yerushalayim and Eretz Yisrael at discounted rates. And then Hashem says, I will allow you to rebuild your batim, your sadot, your kramim. One day you will come back here. But immediately thereafter, look at Yirmiyahu's response in Pasuk Tet Zayin. He says, okay, I went through all the necessary actions, but then I turned to Hashem with those words again. Aha, Hashem Elokim. Oy vey. Hashem, I can't believe you just made me do this. Hashem, I know that you've created the heavens and the earth and you can do anything. Lo yipale mimcha kol davar. Nothing is beyond you, Hashem. Osachasa lalafim, gedol ha'itza, samta otot umoftim, vatiten lahem et haaretz. You created the world. You took Am Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. You gave them Eretz Yisrael. You allowed them to inherit Eretz Yisrael. And then what did you do? You also placed Hinei hasalilot ba'u ha'ir lelachta. You're also allowing Eretz Yisrael to remain vulnerable to enemy attack and invasion. And within all this, you're now telling me, when Yerushalayim is under siege, go ahead and purchase the land. Hashem, this seems so contradictory to everything that you're trying to tell me. I don't understand this, he says. What's going on, Hashem? Yirmiyahu finally asks his questions to Hashem. Hashem, Amakel Shaked, I can see. I can look around at the season, I can see the blossoming of the almond. And I know that it's a very hasty process, and I understand that I have to do something, and I have to predict, and I have to try to affect the people. But such a stark contrast, this I can't understand nor comprehend. And Hashem explains to Yirmiyahu and says, Ani Hashem Elokei kol basar, hamimeni yipalei kol davar. Hashem throws the question back in Yirmiyahu's face. You think anything is beyond me? Yirmiyahu, you really think you're going to understand it? Ma'ata ro'eh. There are certain things that you can see and you can perceive. but there are certain things that you can't, because nothing is beyond God. And this perhaps serves as the paradigm of a chapter of consolation for Yirmiyahu, the same prophet who has to look at his people, who has to look at the status quo, who has to look at the current events, who has to look at himself and interpret and understand that he's living during a time of destruction, is the same prophet who has to take a step back and recognize that he doesn't see everything, that he doesn't recognize everything, that Hashem could also change the season on his own. Hashem can change the makel to a mateh to a makel. Hashem can change a situation of shibud to geula, can change it back from geula to galut. This is the season of the shaked. This is Hashem explaining nothing is beyond him. And perhaps for that reason we can understand the famous sugya of Rabbi Akiva and his peers, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yeshua, who are going to come together with him to Har HaTzofim immediately after the Churban Bayit Sheni, which is a little anachronistic, and yet they see, he and his peers, they see the foxes running through Kodesh HaKadoshim, and Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Gamliel, and Rabbi Yeshua all cry when they see the place where only the Kohen Gadol could enter once a year. Now there are foxes running through this. And how does Rabbi Akiva respond? Rabbi Akiva laughs. And they ask him, Rabbi Akiva mitzachek, amru lo mipnei mata mitzachek. We don't understand. You're looking at the same vision that we're looking at. We all have the same view from Har HaTzofim to Har HaBayit, and you're laughing? Amar lahem. But he seems in perfect innocence to be responding, mipnei mata bochim. I don't even comprehend why you're crying. Amrulo, we think it's very simple. Makom shekatuv bo ba'azar hakarev yumat, v'achshav shualim halchu bo, v'lo nifkeh, the same place that Hashem says if any stranger comes there, uninvited to the Kodesh Kadoshim, he dies, and now there are foxes just running rampantly, and there are no consequences. We think that's a good reason to cry. Amar lahem lekach ani mitzachek. But that's exactly the reason why I'm laughing. Because I know that Hashem has said, on one hand, Va'ida li edim nemanim et Uriah HaKohen v'et Zachariah ben Barachayahu, referring to a Zachariah during Bayit Rishon, v'chima inyan Uriah etzel Zachariah, in the work of Tzvanya, and Rabbi Akiva, who's known for his extrapolations and inductions of text, will take this pasuk completely out of context and say, well, if the nevuot of Uriah, who was a peer of Yirmiyahu, if all those nevuot of destruction came true, then the nevuot of Zachariah, who he will place during the time of Bayit Sheni, and the Navi Zachariah of Shevat Zion, then those will come true as well. What Rabbi Akiva understands is indeed the final message of Yirmiyahu. We can look at a situation and we can perceive it differently. We can understand that if Har HaBayit is desolate, of course it's terrible. And of course that means that this is a time period of Makel Shaked. But what do I know? I know that this is the Shaked. I know that the almond blossoms and then it withers. I know that seasons change. And Rabbi Akiva understands, if I see that I witnessed the Beit HaMikdash in its glory and now it's destroyed, then what can just as easily happen? Then that same state of destruction can be transformed through a season, through our actions, through our perspective, and can be rebuilt. He says, it's so obvious to me. It's all a matter of perspective. When I look, I laugh because I recognize the change. And I recognize Hamin meni yipalei kol davar is anything beyond God. And I recognize that I can't change the status quo right now. I can't change the foxes running through. So it doesn't pay for me to cry. But it does pay for me to laugh because I'm going to already start working on changing the season. Maybe it won't take 21 days. Maybe it will take many more years. But I'm going to work on transforming the situation. Ma'ata ro'eh, basically, Rabbi Akiva's peers ask of him, just as Hashem has asked of Yirmiyahu. And Rabbi Akiva says, I technically see the same picture, but I interpret it very differently than you. I interpret it as a change in seasons. I interpret it as a shaked. I recognize that I can change the status quo. And what we know is that Shvat is the month that leads to Adar. So it's a little too late to look at the blossoms for now, and to recognize that we had an opportunity in the month of Shvat to renew our perspective. We had an opportunity to look at the seasons, to look at ourselves, to look at our peers and our communities,